where we're at. It's not like when I come here, like when we went to that breakfast, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Right? Like every Saturday you guys or Sunday you guys have a breakfast, and like all this community stuff. Like we don't got that over there. It's like tough love fucking recovery.
There's a lot of that. There was a lot of that in Santa Cruz years back. I like this. I was just saying it the other day. I used to hear the term all the time of like, oh, we're supposed to talk about. We can't really say.
You can say whatever you want. We usually don't like name it by name, but everybody knows is watching. We don't speak.
These is what they say. Be like, and some people that weren't doing as much service would feel guilty. They'd feel ashamed to be like, you don't got nothing to say. Sit down, and shut the fucking thing. They did that whole like mantra of like being hard on the newcomer, hard on you know what I mean. I don't think it really works.
Yeah.
I think that like softer approach. Oh, I don't even have this thing.
Yeah, you're not even hooked up.
I lost this thing. So I think that softer approach is much better for people in recovery, because those guys like people don't get, people come in and if they don't like know to raise their hand and say, hey, my name's so and so, I'm clean, I need some help. Like guys might think they don't, like, especially in the men's meeting, they'll think like, hey, that guy doesn't want to be talked to. I'm not going to go approach him, and then that guy will leave. If you don't say, hey, I need to get clean, I need help, like, we don't know that you need help. You might just be, you know what I mean? Mm. That happens all too often. That's how addicts die, right?
Yeah.
That's what you see. So it's good to have community that's like greeting people at the door and like reaching out and like, hey, that guy might need somebody to talk to. Maybe I'll try to talk to him after the meeting, instead of being like, hey, shut the fuck up. You don't got nothing to say. What you'll say won't keep us clean, or, we'll get you loaded. All that whole like harshness. I don't think it works, man. I don't like seeing it.
Well, that's what, like, I know for myself, I needed a soft spot to land, because everywhere I was at was harsh at that point. Like, nobody wanted me around. Right. And I don't know, like, I can't even tell you what it was like my first time in recovery, because I was like 24 and I was like so jaded, and but what I do know is there was a few members there that I felt comfortable calling 9 years later, right? And like and it's funny because I just ran into him. I ran into the guy because our group's name is the Bushwhackers, right? And it's like, what the fuck? Everybody asks like where the fuck's that name come from, right? So I seen him in the meeting. He came down from Mariposa, and I'm like, I got to find out what's going on here, right? Like how this, and so I went to talk to him, and he's like, oh, you're the guy at the flower shop? He's like, you used to drive a blue truck. He's like, I remember you from like 16 years ago. You came in, you were so fucked up. I'm like, I don't even remember you, but I guess I know you, right? And it was like one of those kind of things, which made me feel good. I'm like, man, but the group got its name because they were joking around after a meeting, talking about how they were so spun out. He would see people in the bushes, and so he was running over bushes all the time. And then another guy's like, yeah, I used to throw knives at all my bushes, right? And so they named themselves the Bushwhackers. Oh, wow. Because they were always fighting the bush people, right?
There you go.
Right.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, I was the guy that was nodding off, burning holes in all my stuff. I never saw bush people because I never stayed coherent long enough to run into a bushman. Yeah. The bushman would have got my ass.
Right.
I just had cigarette holes in all my pants.
Yeah.
I was that guy. I had fucking cigarette holes in everything.
Yeah, I did a little of both, dude.
Yeah, I was never an upper guy. To an extent. I just had my one and only experience with meth was so fucking miserable. I was with a bunch of guys stuck in this house, and we just sat there and looked at each other all night. And there was no girls. There was nothing fun happening. I was just stuck with all these guys playing Mario. I'm like, fuck this. I'm like, this ain't for me. Like, I want to lose myself. I don't want to be stuck in this fucking cage with you guys all night. There's nothing to do. We were out on a trucking yard, just one house in the middle of nowhere. A bunch of dudes just smoking meth together. I was like, no, this isn't it for me.
Yeah.
I need to lose myself. So, but anyway, we should probably start. So, man, we're here with Ian. Man, I met Ian through my sponsor, right? Where I met most of the good people I know in recovery. And we sat around a table and we broke bread, and we shared a lot of common ground about, like, especially kids, right? Which we probably won't talk about our kids because my wife gets mad at me whenever I talk about my kids on here. But And there was just so many similarities, right? And then he invited me out to a recovery home, and I got to hear a little bit of his message, and I like Ian's got a lot of recovery, right? And so I was super excited to get you on here, and thank you for letting us into your house, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So the cleaners are here.
Yeah.
We could be in there in the warm. It's a little cold here, but yeah, I've been excited about it. I'm glad we finally got to get together and do it. I was thinking about it because my wife and I have been in Calistoga all weekend. Like we went up and relaxed did a spa treatment and never done it before. Like just relax in a mineral pool, and then did the massage and like the cucumbers over the eyes and everything.
whole thing.
Like the whole. It was cool. It was fun. It was relaxing. I needed it. I'm going back to work next week, and I was like, and so I was kind of trying to think about how this would go, and then it all went out the door on my way home today.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I guess we're just gonna have a conversation.
Well,
see how it goes.
Life's a lot different today. I take it, right? You mentioned the cleaners, spa treatment.
Yeah,
it wasn't like this before.
A little bit different. Yeah, so I just got off of a 4-month hiatus from work, and I first we went and did Disney World. Then I went elk hunting in Oregon for a week and a half. Then I went to New Orleans and hunted alligator for a week. It was pretty cool. Went and ate in Bourbon Street and stuff. Did a bunch of cool things there, and with my wife, and then I got back and did a lobster opener. I dived for lobster and spearfish and stuff, and then I went down to Mexico and did spear. So I've been on this like adventure for the last couple of months, dude.
Right.
And it wasn't like that. My life wasn't like that before.
Right. And this is probably stuff that you never could have imagined, right? Even when getting clean.
I'll tell you what, like I just didn't want to take nothing anymore. I didn't want to get loaded anymore. Right. And I'll tell you that, like when I got clean, I'll tell you what it looked like for me when I got clean is that I was going through a really gnarly divorce with my first child, and in custody battle, and she took off with the crank dealer, and I'm high, she's high, and we're having these gnarly battles in court, out of court, and I've got this 4-year-old, and I've got to stay well. I'm opiate addict, and I'm also, my drug of choice is methamphetamine, so I got to stay high too. And so I've got this 4-year-old in the back seat of the car, and I'm fucking getting loaded, and what that would look like for me was whatever it took. I'd go do whatever it took every day, and sometimes the kid was in the back seat of the car, and I spent a long time like that. And then I met my wife. She was loaded too. My wife was loaded too, and we continued to get high. And she got pregnant, and we had another kid, and then somewhere along the line I got clean, and it was always the same for me in the rooms. I would go back, and these guys here in Santa Cruz would reach out their hands and say, "Hey, welcome back, Ian. This is what we do. We get a sponsor. We work the steps. We go to a lot of meetings. We get a service commitment. We find a higher power." And they tell me that, and I go, "Yeah, that's cool.
It works for you, right?"
That's good. That's good. I'm gonna do what I'm doing." And I couldn't get it, man. And I stayed clean for a short period of time, and then we started drinking. And the next thing I knew, I was running amok again, and I was strung out on 2-3 grams of heroin a day, and shooting a teener at speed a day, and fucking. Crawling under the house, thinking there's people under the house, and getting fucking weird, doing weird shit, trying to unscramble the tube TV for porn channels, and I mean it get weird for me.
Yeah,
and, I was in a bad place, and at some point, somehow I got a job. I gotten back to work. I got back in the union, and I was going to work, and I was actually on your sponsor's job, Gilead, in Foster City, and I would show up every day late, and he probably had, 12 years clean or something at the time, 13 years clean. And he would tell me, if you're going to be late, you got to call. So I call him every fucking day. And go lay down, go on. And so I'd get off work and I'd come home and I'd pick up my wife and my newborn child and my 4-year-old, and we'd get in the car, and my job didn't support my habit. We'd get in the car and we'd go hustle and do whatever it took to go get more dope. And I'd shoot dope in the front seat with my kids in the back. And it didn't fucking matter, it's what we did, and at the end, I think that I was having all these, I was beginning to have like serious medical problems. Not get too much into like the war story thing about it, but like just to give an idea of what it was like for me as an addict. This was, about 18 years of being an IV drug user, and I started to have things like my head would swell up. I would shoot. One day my head swelled up. I don't know if this might be a little too. I don't know how far we go.
As far as you want to go, as much as you want to share.
So one time my head swelled up, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on, dude?" And my eyes started to wrinkle. My ears started to get. I said, "What the fuck's going on?" And the guy I was with happened to be my dope dealer, and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "I'm like, hey, you got to call 911, bro. My fucking head's swelling up." And he's like, no, don't worry, it's all right. And I'm like, no, dude, my head's swollen, my eyes are like wrinkling. I got to take off. My hat doesn't fit anymore. You got to take me to the hospital. This isn't
fucking wild.
This isn't okay. And he's like, no, don't worry, dude. Don't worry, it'll go back down. And I'm like, dude, this is not all right, dude. What the fuck? And I'm freaking out, pacing back and forth. And sure enough, like 10 minutes later, my head, it went back down, and I was okay. And I'm like,
it's fucking wild.
And I'm like, fuck, dude, that was gnarly. So like a week later, I'm sitting with my wife and like one of her friends or something like that, and we're getting loaded, and my fucking head swells up.
I don't know why I want to laugh every time you say my head.
So my head swells up, and I'm like, holy shit, my head's swelling up. And they're like, holy fuck, you need to go to the hospital. There's something wrong with you. We got to call 911. This isn't right. And I'm like, no, don't worry. It'll go back down. I guess is what it had come to,
That's the fucking insanity. That's how insidious this disease is.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that was happening is I would have seizures a bunch, and I was falling out, and I was going out, and my wife I'd wake up in my wife's arms, and my wife was like, dude, you were just blue on the ground, flopping around on the ground. Like, we got to stop this. And I think that what happened for me is that to make it that whole history, in a nutshell, was like, I thought about all the guys that I had grown up with and everybody that I lived with here in Santa Cruz. And Santa Cruz was a different place back then. We were talking about it earlier before we started recording, was that Santa Cruz, there was 250 guys down there. And I think all of California was like that. Like there was 250 guys down there selling dope at all hours of the night. I mean, there was hookers walking Barson Street, and people complain about it now. There's some homeless people, but it was nothing like it was back then. I mean, you could go down there with an unmatching pair of socks and get a 20 of heroin. It was easy. And I think a lot of California was like that, because we'd go to EPA, we'd go to the city, we'd get dope, and there was no issues. I think that's probably a little bit harder in some ways and easier in other. I don't know. I've used it a long time. But everybody I grew up with, all these guys I grew up with, these dudes that I loved, that I cared about, that I played football with, that I like played little league with, that I did junior guards with, right? These guys that I knew all had a problem, but our problems all progressed into this heroin thing, right? And I watched all of them, 80% of them die, and 80% of them died in a hotel room, blue, purple, whatever you want to call it, left behind because their homeboy didn't want to get busted, and left in a hotel room alone, dead. And, there was only a few of them that had other things happen to them. And this is like everybody. I mean, there's only a few guys left. My whole group of guys this inner circle of guys that I grew up with, and they died. They died doping dads who left their kids behind, left their parents behind, and they were good dudes. They were good dudes. And the saddest thing about it is not that. Saddest thing about it is that fucking they didn't amount to shit, dude. That their story is they were addicts and they died addicts, and that was it. They left their kids behind and they left their parents behind. That's fucking sad.
Yeah.
To me, and I think that the night that I finally decided that, like, I was in the bathroom trying to get well, and that's what my life looked like. I would get well in the morning, and I'd drive to work, and then I'd get off work, I'd put the kids in the back of the car, and then we'd go try to hustle to get more, and then I'd come home and get loaded, and that night, for some reason, I realized, like, when you die, you're dead. That's it. There's no coming back from that. And I didn't want to die a doping dad who left his fucking kids behind. I didn't want that to be my story. And I think I came out of that bathroom and I called Jared. And I said, "Hey, Jared, what do I do?" And he said, "Hey, you got the insurance card in your pocket. Why don't you call that number on the back of the card?" And so I got on the card and I called that insurance thing. And they said to me, and I forget the guy's name, but I said, "Hey, I got to get clean." And he's like, "What do you mean you got to get clean?" I said, "I need you guys to come pick me up." And they're like, "Well, we don't pick people up, dude." And I was like, "Okay, well, what do I need to do?" And they were like, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I was like, "Oh, fuck, this is great. I get to pick where I want to go. I got this insurance. I get to pick where I want to go. Like, this is going to be rad." And I, without thinking, it's February. I'm like, I want to go to the camp. Like, they're going to pay for me. I'm going to the camp. Like, that place is rad. Like, they got like ropes courses and like,
oh, it's a nice place.
Swimming pools, right? They got like all these girls there. Like, it's gonna be rad. There's like hiking. Like, it's gonna be cool. I'm gonna be playing ping
like
pong.
You were able to do any of that
like,
stuff, right?
And so I get there and they almost medically discharged me in the first 24 hours because they couldn't get me stable. So I was so sick, man. And I don't remember any of those 28 days that I was there, but I do remember that on day 27. I called the temporary sponsor, one of the guys in the anonymous
fellowship.
In the fellowship, and I had him come pick me up and take me to a meeting. And I went into that meeting, and it felt like home. I walked in, and there was 15 guys that I knew at that meeting, and they all reached out their hand and they said, "Hey, welcome back, Ian. This is what we do. We get a sponsor. We work the steps. We go to a lot of meetings. We get a service commitment. Find a higher power." And I was like, "Oh, that's what you do." And I was like, "Okay." And I just sat there on my hands, for a couple of years, man. Like, sat there on my hands for a couple of years and just did what they said to do. And I showed up to work on time, and and my wife got clean miraculously. My wife's clean date's the day after mine. And then I started showing up to work on time. And then all these things, like we were talking about, started happening for me. Like, I got involved in abalone diving, which turned into spearfishing, and now I travel all over the world shooting fish in the fucking face. And it's pretty rad, dude. And I lobster dive. I'm going lobster diving this weekend. I bow hunt, which is new to the last couple of years. And I'm really excited about that and doing that stuff. And we had another kid, and fucking life's rad, man. I don't even, and I just did what they told me to do, man. I came here. They told me to work the steps. I worked the steps as hard as I could. I got through the first 3, and then I started working on myself, and there was a lot of stuff to work through. There was a lot of stuff through a lot of years to work through, and I continuously work on those things. My sponsor, I spend a lot of time with my sponsor to this day, and I have a few sponsees that still call me. It's rare, but
Well, like, and I want to ask you one thing too, because like the situation you described before you got clean, right? Like you had buddies dying left and right, your health conditions, your head swelling, all this, the seizures, right? And all that stuff going on, like what was the pivot point, right? Because that's how gnarly this disease is, that you could be dealing with all this stuff and just keep on using,
Yeah.
right? Can you put your finger on like what it was that was that pivot point?
Just like what I said, like I think that I just realizing, like, I don't know why I had that moment, because I wasn't clean when it happened, but like I didn't want, and I don't know why I had that realization. Call it God, call it whatever, but like I didn't want to die a doping death,
Right.
and I didn't want to, like, I looked in there and saw this newborn kid and this 4-year-old that needed a father, and like these my parents had a restraining order against me. They didn't want anything to do with me. It was wild. It was a wild time, and I don't know why I got to get this gift. I don't know why that was the time for me. I just know that, like, once I started doing those things, life started to change, like in ways that I didn't think that they would change. Like I just didn't want to take nothing. I just didn't want to have to get well. I didn't want to fucking do weird shit, and I wanted to be able to, like, function normally in life. And what I thought that looked like was way different than what it looks like now. You know what I mean? What I thought that looked like was just having a job and a wife and maybe someday buying a house. And like I didn't think that all that could happen so quickly. If I did the things that they told me to do, you know what I mean? And they do. And I don't know. So as I started to do those things, as I started to be okay with being uncomfortable in a meeting, and be okay with being uncomfortable in the water, being okay with being uncomfortable in the forest, like, I started to realize that I could gain success in all those different areas in my life by going through that uncomfortability, right? Like being okay with that stuff and doing the work that they're asking me to do, because it's not always easy, right? Like success is not a fucking comfortable place. In recovery, in fucking work, in the spearfishing, whatever, it's not a fucking comfortable place. It's not. It's tough sometimes. Work's tough sometimes. Like, when I'm half the time you're in the water, free diving for fish, like it's uncomfortable. The pressures of the water on you, you're holding your breath. You fucking don't see any fish for 2 days. I realized through these other men in recovery that like I needed to go through some uncomfortability to get to a successful place in life. And I thrived off that. Like, I really fucking thrived off that. And I don't know what the exact pivoting moment was, just that realization, the burning, whatever you want to call it, the burning bush, or the but I wouldn't have been able to do it without the other men here in how did you say it?
The fellowship
In
of
the
recovery,
fellowship,
right?
in the fellowship. So I wouldn't have, like for instance, my mom just passed. She passed. So it's been 2 years now. 2 years, November 1st. She got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 years ago. She's 65 years old, and she was given 9 months. And this is a woman that, like, I put her through hell, man. I put her through hell. She was at court dates, and and the other end of the phone calls, you know what I mean? And had restraining orders against me, and I ripped her off, and I did all these things. I put this woman through hell, man. I put her through hell. And I had been clean for some time when she got diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. My mom just got diagnosed with cancer. What the hell do I do? And so I started calling guys in recovery in the program, and I said, hey, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? Hey, you just got to show up, Ian. You just got to show up. And so I started showing up for her. I'd come home from work. and I'd do art projects with her. She'd have me drill holes in plates and make garden art and like, and in the end, her and I had the best relationship out of everybody in the family. And this woman trusted me and loved me and bragged about me to her friends. And I learned that from the fellowship. Okay. Any answer that I need, any answer that I don't have an answer to, I can call somebody in recovery and ask them, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do? And vice versa, it's happened to me. Right. Other people have the same thing happen to them, and they're like, hey, and I'm in this situation. I'm having a custody battle with my kid. And I'm like, well, when I went through it, looked like this. And here we are,
When it's funny, like out of everybody I sit and talk to and everybody that I know in recovery, the people that are sitting here and the ones that aren't gone, the only difference between us and them is we ask for help. Yeah. Right. And sometimes, like, I don't even know how I did it. We called the same guy, right? Yeah, we called the same guy, right? And just, that as small as it seems, that's the difference, I think, between the ones that make it and the ones that don't, is just crying out for help, right?
Yeah.
And somebody will answer that phone, right? Somebody will answer. And I think that's like the biggest thing that we die from, our prideful disease of not wanting to ask for help.
Yeah, that's what I tell these guys all the time when I do those meetings. I still do those. I've been doing Janice and the camp for almost 9 years now. I've been going there every Tuesday, and a lot of times I don't want to go. But I tell those guys, hey, if you don't raise your hand and say, hey, I'm new, I need help, or hey, if you don't do the work, like, you're not going to get clean.
Right.
And they say they'll often like wonder, oh yeah, they give all these percentages, like only 10% of us are going to stay clean, and I think those percentages are pretty right on probably. But the reality of it is, if 100% of them want to stay clean, 100% of them can fucking stay clean.
Right.
They just got to do the work. You got to reach out your hand and say, hey, I need help, man. Like I'm going through this. Like, if we don't, then like how, I've had a lot of tough times in recovery. Like, it hasn't been just easy, you know what I mean? But through doing all those things, working the steps, meeting with my sponsor regularly, having a fellowship of men that I talk to on a regular basis, working with others, staying in service, like all that stuff is like, I've got a buddy that always says, he says, hey, you want self-esteem? Well, do esteemable things.
Yeah.
I love that thing. I love it, man. I tell my kids that. I'm like, oh, that's fucking rad. Like, oh, it's so simple.
Right.
Like, you want to have high self-esteem? Do esteemable things. Oh, what are esteemable things? Oh, like helping others. Oh, that's going to make me feel good? Yeah, fuck yeah, it's going to make me feel good.
Yeah, I hear that one all the time too. The one that used to piss me off the most is, well, if you don't pick up, you won't get loaded.
Yeah.
Right. And now I can relate to it, right?
No, simple.
Yeah, right. Like years down the road, but it wasn't that fucking easy in the beginning. It's like, yeah, I get it, right? Yeah. I get it, but I can't implement it into my life, right? Like, but that's the funny thing about it. There's so many simple suggestions that are going to keep you clean for a long time if you're just willing to take them. Right. Yeah. And I think for me, that even now in recovery, sometimes that's the hardest part, is being willing to take that suggestion and actually do it or implement it into my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the best sponsee.
No.
I'm not the best person in recovery. Sometimes my recovery program sucks. I got chewed out my gardener yesterday.
Right.
And he fucking quit. Right. And I fall short all the fucking time, but I get to be better the next day.
But right? You recognize that that's the difference.
Yeah, it's the difference. Fucking guy quit on me on the spot.
I said in a meeting the other night, I said, hey, I'm still trying to get my wife to argue with me because she won't argue with me. And they're like, and the other guy, well, I wish I could have a wife that doesn't argue with me. I'm like, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah.
Like if she knows if she doesn't argue with me, then like she wins.
Yeah.
She wins. I wish I could learn that lesson.
It's like she's parenting you, right?
Right, exactly. And I slowly learned these things. I'm like, oh, she's not, like, when I like say something really awful towards her, and she doesn't react, that teaches me. And I go, oh,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that because she's not, if she reacted like my ex would, right? Like, it'd be a little bit
more fun.
A little bit different. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like me and my wife, we don't really argue that much, right? Like I know when to back down. She knows when to back down. We get along, which is like, it's crazy. Like, because my wife's been clean for a long stretch of time now too. And like the ripple effect that has not only on us, but our family. Like, I mean, it's insane what this program will do for not only, like, have you been able to see the ripple effect in your life from being clean, like just on people around you? I know you talked about your mom.
Oh yeah.
But like, what does that look like?
Oh God, it looks like 3 kids that are thriving. A father that reaches out to his son instead of, my dad enabled me for years, codependent, like enabled me. I'll give him a little bit of money and he'll be okay. Like, help him out when I was just, you know what I mean? And now it's the opposite. I go help him work through things, work through his relationships. You know what I mean? These kids are thriving. It's like, it's wild. It's wild. And you get to see people succeed and look. I mean, I can't even, there's so many examples that I can't even, it's hard to really like point them all out because there's so many examples of what it looks like to have somebody get clean, help other people get clean, and the community get less sick because of that, right? The community there's a bunch of guys in the rooms right now that are dudes that I grew up with that were Southern gangbangers, and they're like, there's like a good group of them, a solid core of them. To have those guys not involved and not jumping guys in and being involved in that whole like scene, like that's huge in itself.
Right.
These guys are becoming radiologists and respiratory therapists, and like you're like, wait a second, dude, I used to buy dope from you,
right?
Like it's a wild thing. Like I can't say enough about the community. I think that we're really fortunate here, as you've seen, like what Santa Cruz is like. Like I've got a few men's meetings that I can go to during the week that are over 30 guys that I can go, bounce my stuff off and see that aren't getting loaded. And they don't not all of them all stay clean, but like there's like a good core group of guys that are staying clean with a lot of time here.
Right. And you guys are fortunate because I'll tell you what, like where I'm at, I got my sponsor because he's the guy, right? And I'm fortunate because I think I would have gotten lucky picking him in any area, right? But like God puts the right people in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And like something that you said, like I wanted to ask you about this because like so many people like today, right, are talking about how dangerous the drugs are. But you, even before this fentanyl stuff was going around, people were dying.
Yeah.
Right. I from talking to people, especially I talked to a gal last week, and it's like people were always dying. Right. Like, do you see like a huge difference between what's going on now and then? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, I'm not in it, so I get to see Janus is a pretty rough place, and the camp's a little bit, more money, but I get to see that every other week, and there's a lot of fentanyl addicts in there.
Yeah.
And I think if they stay addicts, if they stay active in that usage, it looks like opiate addiction, right? I think that my opinion, and I don't know, I'm not.
Yeah, we're not doctors, right?
But the fentanyl theme seems to hit people that aren't like, the hardcore, that are just, hey, I'm going to go try this one time, and then they're dead.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be a part of that because that's sad. That's sad to watch, dude. They say it's happening, but I don't know. It's happening to us all the time too.
Right. Like the way I think about it is it's just hitting the right segment of the population to where it's a news story now.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because when people are dying on Skid Row, it's like, oh, that's supposed to happen. We're not going to report on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that somebody's going, and it scares me having kids, right? The possibility that they can go to a party and try
me
something
too.
one time and boom, be
Me
gone.
too. And having a 15-year-old, you know what it's like having a teenager in the
Yeah.
house. I'm scared all the time. I got a 15-year-old that's I know she's drinking. I know she's doing stuff, and like I just want her to keep an open line of communication, because I think high schoolers drink and they do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and I just worry, hey, don't make smart choices. Don't take nothing if you don't know what it is. That's my worry. Is like,
Yeah.
she's going to take something that they tell her is a Valium or something, and it's really fentanyl, and that's the big worry. But I mean, I don't know. I think, I don't. It's I would hate to be out there without the consequences. So that's what I see now, is that these people don't have consequences. If you got in trouble, I think you get locked up, and people don't get locked up anymore. They just like they can continue this use, and until they die, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't get that reprieve that we got. Like I got a reprieve. They would come get me and they would take me away, and I'd go into a concrete cell and kick dope, and sometimes I'd come out clean and sometimes I wouldn't. But like for the most part, like I knew they were coming sooner or later, and I knew I'd have to turn myself in sooner or later. And these people don't. They get tickets.
Yeah.
And they get to continue to use, and so it's a different trip for sure. It's scary to see. I'm glad. I mean, I'm just glad I didn't ever experience it, and I hope that my kids don't.
Yeah, me too. That's the scariest thing. I think it's scary enough as a parent, and then it's even scarier being a parent on the front lines that's seeing this shit, right? Like, because we're exposed to, we're exposed to a lot of great recovery and great things, but we're exposed to a lot of people that are coming in and they're reporting how fucking scary it is right now, right?
Yeah.
And they don't look like the addicts. I was one of the first peel guys in Los Banos. They're like, where the fuck did you come from? Right? Like, it wasn't like meth or anything else. It's now it's like pills and all this other stuff. And right when I got clean was right when the fentanyl was coming out. Cause I remember I'd get bags. I'd have to put them on my windshield to see if any of the pills were transparent, because then I knew they were the dangerous ones, right? And and now I think it's even scarier because they just don't know what they're getting,
And with all that in mind, it's wild to me that they're still getting clean. Like I without, like, even through COVID, I we had all these Zoom meetings and everything going on, and there was no, like, in Santa Cruz, they kept them going. They kept like some outside meetings going on, and they had all kinds of Zoom meetings going on. And I didn't partake in a lot of the Zoom stuff. I did it a few times, but like, I continued to meet with a men's group that wasn't supposed to meet, but we did anyways, kind of thing. And people kept still coming in. Newcomers kept coming in.
Yeah.
And if you go to an 8 o'clock meeting here, which since I've been on this little hiatus, I've been able to go to a few 8 o'clock meetings. There's a bunch of newcomers.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of newcomers coming into meetings, and they're coming in with that story of like, hey, I'm strung out on fentanyl, and that's what I've been doing out there, and now I'm clean, and I think it's just a little more volatile than heroin. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and that's the hard part, is people ask somebody like you or somebody like me, and it's been like, man, I've been clean. I don't even know. Yeah. Like, I don't even know any. I'm sure I could find out real quick, because it's always that far away, but I'm not willing to even risk it today. Thank God the desire to use has been lifted, and I'm able to sit here with you today.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, so say like somebody's watching this, Ian, like, and somebody's out there struggling, or they don't know what to do. Like, do you have something that you would tell somebody in that situation, right? Like somebody that needs help and they're not willing to raise their hand. Like, I mean, or somebody that thinks they have a problem, or they're on the fence, right? Do I have a problem? Do I not have a problem?
Well, I mean, if you're out there using fentanyl, you probably have a problem.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, like, if they can make it to the rooms, it's crazy that, like, I had a guy call me, a buddy of mine, he calls me quite often, and I don't always answer, but he's doing, he just got 12 years or something like that. And he got 12 years for for bringing fentanyl in to the county jail in Yuba County Jail or whatever county that is up there. He lived in Yuba City. Kid I grew up with, surfer kid. Him and his brother were rad surfers. Killed it their whole lives, and then started doing heroin, became heroin addicts, and then spent the rest of their life locked up or strung out. And he just got 12 years for bringing fentanyl into the county jail, and one of the guys died. One of the guys OD'd and died, and he calls me, and he said to me and sometimes I'll answer and sometimes I won't, because it's a long conversation if you answer, and he's like, well, why are you go down? How come you? I'm telling him what I'm doing. I said, oh yeah, I'm going up to working on my house in Tahoe. And what about your house? I ask questions. What are you doing? Well, next week I'm going lobster diving. And he's like, I don't understand. How come you were the worst at all those? Like, I don't get it. We did the same thing. How come I'm here and you're there? And I'm like, fucking, I don't know. What happened for me was that I was in a program in San Jose, in a program called Pathways, and this guy Steve M came in and carried the message, and I heard about Narcotics Anonymous, about the fellowship. Sorry, I'm not good.
It's all good.
And I usually feel very clear NA message. So, and the seed was planted for me, and I don't think it was planted for any of those people. And so I just hope that somebody that's on the streets and that can just make it into a meeting and maybe hear something. Maybe they won't get clean right now. Maybe they'll just know that there's a safe place for them to go and get coffee one night, or that there's other people that are going through some of the same stuff, and then maybe they'll make it back someday, or maybe they'll come in and get clean and stay clean from that meeting on. I don't know, but if you can just make it to a meeting, you might hear something that pertains to you and might work for you in recovery. Who's to say why we got it? Why these guys that I talk about got it? I don't know. I don't understand it. Because I know that, like, I was bad off and I was a bad person and I did bad things, and for some reason I was given a second chance through the process of recovery. It's sad to watch these guys. You hear it all the time. They come in, oh, well, this person died and that person died, and you're like, yeah, that's what happens.
Right.
If you shoot dope, like, people die, addicts die, and if you don't reach out your hand, addicts die, and if you don't like when we started this conversation, that whole like a hardlining, recovery attitude, like, addicts will die because of things like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Some guys are like, no, we need to be like tough on them, sit down, shut the fuck up, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth kind of attitude. And it's like, fuck, these guys need love, man.
Yeah.
They need some love, and they need to, because it's unlikely that you're going to get clean. There's a very few percentage of us that get to have this gift.
Well, that's what, when I got clean at the Salvation Army, and it was very much that way. Like, if you fucking relapse, you're a fucking loser. Get out of here, right? Like, they had that mentality, and I survived with that mentality for 6 months. And when I got out and I went back into the rooms, it took me quite a while to become empathetic again, right? And learn, like, oh, we don't shoot our wounded around here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You welcome somebody in with a hug, right? Yeah. If they go back out and they come back in, you welcome them with a hug again.
Exactly.
Right?
Because if they didn't do that for me, if nobody did that for me, like, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
If these guys didn't reach out their hand, and there's the same guys. It was those guys like Shawno and James and Jared, that when I'd come back weighing 160 pounds, been through hell, and I'd walk back in the rooms and they'd say, man, welcome back.
Yeah.
This is what we do. Oh, that's what you do. Okay. Sit down, man. Have some coffee. Hang out. Like you might learn something. And I didn't take their advice for years. It took me years, man. It took me a lot of years of coming in and out before I actually did what they told me to do. You know, I thoroughly, how do you say that? I strongly believe in this therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. And I believe that it's our responsibility as recovering addicts to carry the message to the addict that still suffers. It's our fucking responsibility. And if we don't do that, we don't get to stay clean.
Right.
And that is the most important thing for all of us to do. It's our fucking primary purpose, right? And like people forget that, right? Like people forget that, and we've got to stay focused. And it's important that we stay focused, because if you could do everything, you could fuck up on your steps and not be a great person. But if you're always in service and you're always helping other addicts, then you get to, and you don't take nothing, then you get to stay clean, right? And whether you like it or not, you're gonna have like good things starting to happen to you.
And that's it. And I'm super excited tonight to for you to give me the opportunity to go and share the message, you know, because that is it, right? Like that's the crux of this program, you know, standing in front of a bunch of newcomers and being able to tell them we're here, and not because we're special, because we decided to do this, right? And we weren't too scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, and so, man, I think we hit about an hour. So is there anything else that you feel like we missed?
No, I think we got it all, dude.
Yeah, no, I think that was awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity. I was wanting to do it for a while.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. I was working way too hard.
Well, and and we took a hiatus, you know, and so now we're getting back on this thing, and we don't know what it looks like, but I'm just extremely grateful that people are willing to do it, because this was the biggest hang up is when we talked about this thing at first. It was like, people aren't going to want to do this shit. They're not going to put it on YouTube. They're not going to want, you know, but here we are. So you owe me a hug, Ian. That's how we finish this thing off. Right off. Yeah. Thank you, brother. What we get, about 45 minutes?